Evening, afternoon, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope we are all well. Well, aside from the fact that there has been a delay on the inform for the Swedish tanks and everything else coming out on October the 10th, we have got some other good news. We found out what's happening with the buffs and the nerfs. Now, it's maybe a slightly longer video because there are a lot of different things to go through, and unlike the other ones, I will try and get through every single tank that's in here and try and give a bit more input on what I know specifically about that tank if I've had it already. There may be ones obviously that I don't have. I've yet to go down. I am slowly working my way up the lines. As always, a link to this news article will be in the description below. So let's start with it with the fact the download size is 4.7 for the Xbox One and 360 with 117 meg title update plus 1.5 gig download. The PlayStation between 4 and 4.4. Hopefully you'll have fibre broadband, if not you might be downloading for a while. Now, we all know the new features that are coming in regards to the server replays and siege modes, in regards to your Swedish TDs, so we can skip past that one. Apparently, persistent platoons, in terms of two-person platoons, can move between eligible game modes without disbanding. I think that might be something to do with like war stories as well as normal multiplayer, but we'll see. So, new vehicles again. You got your VK30P, the American and the Tier 10, and your Swedish ones as well, along with the new maps. There have been some improvements been made, so the spotting improvements in terms of the vehicles will appear more quickly on screen. There has been some kind of a delay with that. Czech voice mode has been added, as well as the Swedish. Tank shot decals improved. Map rotation adjustments in regards to Tier 4 have become available. I presume there is like a... I haven't played Tier 4 in a very long time, but it might be that there's not very maps for them. Unfortunately, it's going to include extreme weather variants, so... ish. Minimap improvements, including buildings are now solid black and destructible buildings are solid black with white outlines. Fairly good if you're probably using the small round minimap, just because you have the detail that's there in front of you. Adjusted friendly scout bots and more stories to be faster tanks, reduce the amount of enemy artillery for lower tiers in Queen's Gambit. Apparently people are having a few issues with getting dirt by the artillery in that one. I only found myself really running out of ammo and health, but I don't know, each their own. I suppose some people may have had issues. Northwest Standard and Team Destruction, Spawns adjusted for balance. The Northwest Encounter mode is base adjusted for balance. And the Northwest adjusted object placements. Ensk adjusted some buildings to scale to allow large tanks to clear a path. Rune Big War, prop placements, updated free XP and XP icons, made pickups larger for visibility. That was sort of an issue in more stories, it was difficult to see where they were. So you're looking at the map and then in front of the map you couldn't really see exactly where they were. And some improved bot response to attack radial commands, movement when following a player in explosion FX, and platoon members will now spawn closer together. Extremely annoying if you're on a defense and you had the 1-2-3 spawn, you wanted to be together in order to try and make sure you weren't going to lose the game. Although having said that can always happen, but it allows you to create your teamwork a little bit easier. I still presume you're going to get shafted in terms of where the placement for the tanks are, because you'd put the new 100 as far back as possible. It's going to take years to get where it needs to be. Now we come to the bread and butter of this update, the one thing that I've been looking at, the vehicle updates. So there are going to be HD updates to this one in terms of just making it HD, looks nicer, no other changes to the tank, it will state that. We'll go through some of the other changes that they're having to the tanks, and I'll be highlighting more on the tanks that are popular, so to speak. So the radio weight apparently is including the mobility stat calculation in terms of obviously how much that weighs and the power to weight ratio display. Doesn't change the performance of any vehicles and just updates the display to be correct. I assume at the moment that they are correct in terms of their values in the game, but they just don't reflect on the actual scale when you look at it. And the HD details are just there again, kind of irrelevant in terms of what you'll be looking to use the tank. Chinese tanks, the first one's up, WZ11114. HD collision model updated, as is a lot of them. The hull armour is getting a slight buff up to 120. That may be just for the upper plate itself, so the first two. I can never remember exactly which way it's around, but it's getting a buff either way. The WZ131, the light tank, is getting a slight terrain buff, only very slight. I don't know how much of a difference that will be. It's still a fairly fast tank, and the gun's quite derpy as well. The 112, again another buff, and its hull armour going up to 120 instead of 80, and the dispersion itself is also getting a buff from 0.25 to 0.23, and the shot dispersion will also be getting a buff from 0.14 to 0.12. As it is most of the times I say this, it will be a buff, but I'm getting to another good part where there's actually a nerf, and I'm really excited. I know you can't tell. Some other HD constant collision models, I should say. And then we move on to the Russian tanks. Your lightweight, your T-54, again getting a slight terrain resistance in terms of both the chassis available that you have in your packages. Again, not by very much, but we'll see. I mean, obviously, if you play the tank, you'll notice the difference. I've not played in it a very long time. The T10, still one of my least favourite tier 9s to play. The armour, I find it difficult to be able to bounce, but it's getting a rotation buff itself. Chassis 1 and 2, 2 kilometers an hour, I believe it will be, not miles an hour, from 28 to 30 and 30 to 32. For all those people with the IS7s out there, you're getting a hull health boost from 1720 to 1920. Turret health is going from 430 to 480, and your 130mm gun aim time is going from 3.1 seconds to 2.9. So that's a nice little extra buff on that one. I suppose with the fact it's got no gun depression pretty much whatsoever, it's kind of needed. A few other updated on the HD collision models for the Russian tank line, aside from the T26. Looks to be like there's a nerf in terms of turret armour, although it's a low tier anyway, so not really something to be that too fussed about. Many HD collision models for the Russians. Now moving on to the German tech line. This may be in regards to the current German tanks that are coming out. Your LOL tractor getting a slight buff. I don't see the point, but apparently maybe 2mm will make a difference. Going through to the Panzer 1 RC, another slight buff on the side, slight nerf, I apologise, from 20 to 15. Some HD collision models, and then we get onto some decent tanks that you will know of. The Panther, getting a top speed boost from 48 to 55, the tier 7 German medium. Not bad, maybe it competes with a few other tier 7s you have, so it might be a relatively decent buff, so to speak, but not really something that so interests me because I've already gone past it, but it will definitely help. It's a fairly good tank as it is overall, and any buffs to it would only improve it. Some slight changes to the Panzer 3A, which is going to be Panzer 3E. Again, it's a low tier, so it's not really of genuine interest. The Panther 88, this is the German tier 8 premium. It's getting a hull armour boost, 80 to 85. The engine horsepower is going from 600 to 700, with a rotation speed from 38 to 40, and it's getting a max gun depression boost. I wasn't fond of this tank compared to other tier 8 premiums that I've got, the STA2, the T95E2, both medium tanks, so maybe an 8 degree gun depression might make it decent to actually play. Fortunately, the Tiger 131 is not getting a buff. Doesn't really need one, to be perfectly honest, but that doesn't stop that from happening. The VK30D, tier 6 German medium, getting a top speed boost from 56 to 60, and the rotation speed is getting a huge boost up to 45, so that thing will turn like a note. The VK31D, again, rotation speed going from 38 to 40. The 75mm gun reload time is going from 4.4 to 4.2. I assume that is definitely within regards to some balance changes, possibly due to the various tier 6 premiums that are already out at the moment or due to be coming out as well. As you tend to see that if there are premium tanks of that tier coming out, you will tend to see buffs of standard tanks happening. I've seen it a few times happen, which is why I'm seeing like these tier 6s getting quite a big change. The new tank that I've just got myself, the VK30P, which will go down the new mouse line, which will go up to the BZ. The shot dispersion will go from 0.28 to 0.25, and during movement 0.25 to 0.22. And fortunately, the 88mm shot dispersion during rotation 0.18 to 0.16, so it'll improve the accuracy just so much better, much more. Panzer 3-4, getting a slight hull armour boost. I mean, that's a fair whack on it, and the hull health going to 336. That's decent, 340 meter range. The elevation going from 17 to 20 and the depression from 6 to 10. Again, very, very useful. I shouldn't highlight that because it kind of ruins everything. And the other tank, the other gun that you get on that one as well, which I believe is I think it's the tier 5. No, it's Panzer Heavy. This might be the tier 4. I'm sure I played this line before, but yeah. Again, very, very good if you want to peek over the top of a hill and leave the gun mantlet being the only thing that can really hit. Your copula is going to be quite far behind. As if it needs to be, the Panzer 5-4 gets a gun depression boost from -4 to -8. I mean, that thing shouldn't be a tier 5 tank with a 780 HP. It is annoying to come up against. But if you get enough people around it, it's like an XP pinata. The Mouse, a tier 10 German heavy, getting a massive turret armor boost. Can I actually speak English? I don't know. From 240 to 260, with the rest staying the same, and the 128mm shot dispersion is going from 0.38 to 0.36. The aim time from 0.29 to 0.21, but the shot dispersion during rotation is 0.6 to 0.05 with increased gun armor. Now that has to be in regards to the new tier 10 that they're bringing out to try and make it competitive. That is ridiculous aim time boost. That'll be interesting to see when it comes in. If any of you guys actually play it and see the difference between the two, do let me know. The Nashorn is getting a slight nerf. I can never remember that way around, but it's getting a change. The Emil, again, similar changes to the fact that when it moves, it's going to be more noticeable. And see, this is another thing that's confused me. When they say the model gun changed 02 to 01, doesn't quite make sense. I assume there is some regards to the way in which they're labelled or placed into the packages. Your low and the low black, or the Lerva, German tier 8 heavy tank, HT collision model, but it's getting a horsepower boost of 200 to 1000. And not just that, it's getting a whole armor boost, 120 to 150 with a gun depression of going to -10. Again, new tank coming out, likely to see this, but on the premium tank. That, I mean, it's not exactly a bad tank to play to start with, but now you've got it as a that's really good. If you have the Leopard or the Leopard Black, you are going to be really, really useful. The E50 is getting a gun depression from 5 to 8, which helps so much because you're not using the turret to turn to the side of your tank and use that to aim down. If any of you have not played the E50 but you played the Japanese heavy tanks, you'll know what I mean. Obviously the turrets over the front, which were kind of, you question the people who made the tank in the first place, but anyway, you move the turret to the side and you get a lot more gun depression. I'm liking to see the Tiger P. Apparently it's got increased commander's hatch hull armor. It is something very easy to pen in most cases if I'm actually able to hit it because RNG. The Bravo, as if it needs a hull armor boost, but it is. It's going from 100 to 120 for the middle, and your turret armor as well is also going up. I mean, that tank is not exactly paper thin. That lower front plate is god amazing, is the only word I can come out with. The Panther 2 is getting the added 88mm L100 gun. Now, if I was able to find out which one gun that was, I'd be able to show it. I may be able to pop a picture in regards to what it, the stats wise for that specific gun, if I'm able to find it on another tank and get it from World of Tanks wiki. VK28 is going, get off my screen. The VK28 getting a slight boost. I think this is a tier 6 light tank. Very good gun depression from -5 to -10, and apparently it's having a model update from gun 5 to gun 9, which again doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm sure someone will be able to tell me. The VK45 Alpha, this is your German tier 8 current heavy tank that leads up to the mouse line, and getting a nice hull armor boost from 120 to 150. The elevation is going from 17 to 15, and the gun depression is going from 6 to 8. So you're losing 10 on the elevation, but gaining it on the depression, which is ideal. Some changes to the actual guns themselves. The VK Alpha, I've never really had an issue with myself in regards to it being any sort of a hard tank to penetrate, really. So I would say any sort of kind of update to its armor is going to be useful and helpful. The E50, very similar to the E50M, is very similar to the E50 in regards to its depression, going from 5 to 8, which is kind of figured because it is the natural progression for it. So they're getting the same as well over the front. Your Syphilis Wagon, tier 6 German tank destroyer, having slight changes to its ability to stay... No, I think that's a buff, sorry. I think that's a buff. I may be stupid here because I'm sure I've seen it elsewhere, but I'm sure that's a buff on all of them. So you're getting a buff in regards to when you're moving and still camo factors changing and for the better. The 88mm flat gun is also getting Jesus Christ, a penetration boost from 171 to 194. I heard, well, I mean, it's not exactly a crap tank, and it's going to make it a lot better. The Panzer IV, whatever the hell that's called, I can never pronounce stuff like that, is getting some slight buffs as well. So if you do have that yourself in terms of actually play it now, or you're going to be playing it in terms of going down the tank line, then you're going to get a nice little boost for that one. The champion tank, the M10 Panther Tier 7 Premium. Crap tank overall in my opinion, very much like the Craft Panther, but it's getting a hull armor boost, not very much in what it had already, and it's getting a slight nerf to the turret armor. Spaced armor though is being added, so it's kind of stopping heat shells going through, but high explosive is still going to be very useful to just slam through the side of it. Your top speed is going from 46 to 55. The shot dispersion during turret movement and rotation is going from 0.19 to 0.15, and your view range is getting an extra 15 meters, which doesn't sound like a lot, but believe me, it is very useful. The reload time on the 75mm is going from 4.5 to 4, with the dispersion on the during turret rotation from 0.12 to 0.11, and the shot dispersion after each shot is from 4 to 2. with the dispersion overall of 0.35 to 0.32. The Awful Panther, again another German tier light. I think it's the tier 7 this one, or tier 6. I can never remember that one. I keep seeing him in game, but I don't really see enough for him to be able to shoot them and actually figure out. But the increased movement factor again is getting a slight buff. The dispersion after each shot from 3.5 to 3, and the dispersion during the turret rotation from 0.12 to 0.1. Now we come on to the Indian Panzer. It's getting a buff from 50 to 55 with regards to its top speed. Its 88mm gun aim time is going from 0.29 to 0.25, and the 9cm is going from 0.27 to 0.23. So if you got the tank itself, I expect it to be a little bit better, especially if you got equipment on that one, as is the case with anything. The Leopard PTA, the max gun depression is going to -8, so that's ideal. Very much in line with the other E50 and the E50M. A couple of collision models, and the BK30M, which I believe is the tier 7, is getting a much needed whole armor boost because it's not ideal. But then a lot of the German mediums don't tend to be more about the armor in the lower tiers, they're more about the speed and the ability to snipe. The 75mm gun elevation is going from 17.5 to 20, with the depression going from 0.75 to 8. Can't really see that much of a difference compared to the other ones, and a similar story for the 75mm. Having said that, it looks to be they've just copied and pasted, apart from the fact it's a different turret, so the dispersion is showing as well from 4 to 3, with a rotation dispersion from 0.16 to 0.12. The E100, I don't know if this is to stop people firing heat, but the 150mm or 15cm pierce standard shells is going from 235 to 246, with what I believe to be high explosive. I don't think it includes the heat rounds because they'd just be ridiculously over like 330 or something daft. Go from 220 to 241. Will it stop people firing high explosive anti-tank? I don't think so, because E100 drivers using the 15cm would only use the 15cm with that gun to drop 700 HP. We'll see. The 150mm or 15cm on the Grill 15, the German tier 10 tank destroyer, the shell speed being nerfed from 1350 to 1200, so it's not going to be quite as fast. A little bit more lead that you'll need to have in your targets, but not something overly required. The GWE 100, the horsepower is going from 900 HP to 1200, with the weight of the tank going from 1300 to 750. Oh, that's for the engine, sorry, 1300 to 750 kilos. It's a slow tank to start with, so I should assume any sort of a buff with that would help a lot of people using it. I mean, if you're going to get into a position and sit there, it's kind of irrelevant that you'd need it, apart from most of the time, most of the artillery stay on base, so I don't really know if it's required. If any of you use it, let me know and see what you think. The GW Mark 6E, 105, sorry, the LEF H116, I think it's the French premium artillery. It's getting a slight shot dispersion radius from 0.84 to 0.86, with the aim time going from 0.65 to 0.6, with the reload time getting a nice buff from 19 to 16.5 seconds. Now we move on to a few other tank destroyers. Your Stug B 75mm gun is having a shot dispersion buff from 0.55 to 0.45, with a 105mm Derpy from 0.55 to 0.53, so not much of a change but for that particular gun, but still nonetheless an improvement. The Stug 4 is having increased moving camo from 0.22 and 0.366 to 0.26 to 0.406, so it'll be slightly more hidden. The 80mm PAC 36L56 gun is having a piercing power. In regards to that, I mean just a pen boost from 171 to 194, which affects the Jagdpanzer 4, the Jagdpanther Tier 7, and the Nashorn as well. With the other guns after it, the 80mm guns premium shell. In fact, they might have been the premium for both of them. You see, well, I'm looking at that one. They've copied and pasted it again. So in regards to the gun previously, the VK36, the 30.02D, the 3001P, the Tiger P, the VK Alpha, Indian Panzer, the Tiger 1, all use that gun, will all have that pen boost. Really quite nice for the Tiger to actually have that pen boost. I wonder if the hammer's going to be affected by that as well. That'll be interesting to see. The 150mm L38 gun, which I believe will be, the mini waffle and the main waffle, for some reason, is getting a pen boost because it needs one. Again, it's a gun that people just spam heat out of, so I don't see the point in increasing the standard penetration if The reason being, if people are going to use the standard and find out it still bounces, they're just going to switch back to heat. Now, bearing in mind you have the longer reload and the longer aim time, you're not going to really risk having an AP shell not go through a target. Just use heat. A couple of updates to the French tanks themselves, mainly collision models and some of the lower tiers, but when we get onto the AMX, things like the AMX 5120, gun elevation from 6 to 11, the gun depression from 6 to 9, I might actually enjoy playing this tank again. I hated this tank. I hate this tank already. The gun depression is certainly one of the problems. The other problem is just how long it takes to fire off your entire clip. So you sort of find yourself in a position whereby you're only able to do a small amount of damage and you have to really aim your shot because the aim time's not there, and you can't really unload a clip or get into a position whereby you can definitely do some serious damage. And then when you get yourself down to like 1 or 2 shots because you've been waiting 30 seconds, a minute before you can actually fire, things start getting a bit annoying. So that might be useful. The AMX-50B, which is the tier 10 French auto-loading heavy, gun depression from 8 to 10. 12 tier 7 light tank, the gun dispersion on the 75mm from 0.2 to 0.19, and the SA-50, the top pack, from 0.2 to 0.18. Not very many others have changes in regards to the French. They'll be of an actual use. Generally in lower tiers you'll get past them fairly easily, and most of the changes they have to them don't actually make an impact in how you play. They're very negligible. Moving on to some of the UK tanks themselves, HD collision gun model updates. The Conqueror gun carriage, apparently the armour is being nerfed. Didn't really know that the tank itself had that much of an issue in terms of being hit. And they've reduced the moving still camo factor as well, so it's going to be even easier to spot. A few of the changes to the HD collisions for the Sentinel and the TOG 2, the Challenger, the Achilles and the Covenanter are all getting increased moving still camo factors in all across everything. Your FV202P, which is your new, well, it was kind of new, it's the tier 8 premium tank that was the tier 10 medium, having a top speed boost from 35 to 50, and the credits is going from 50% to 60%. That's good. It's definitely going to be more competitive with the other tier 8 premium tanks that are available. T95E2, your Panther 88, your STA2, STA2 Black, the STA2 Senshi. I'm sure there's another STA2 out there somewhere, because why isn't there? So that'll be interesting to see. The gun carriage is getting the Lloyd gun carriage. 13 pounder is getting a quicker reload from 7 to 6.4 seconds, and the aim time is getting a buff from 5 seconds to 4.8, sorry. Now we move on to some fun stuff. I'm going down this line, and I'm really quite happy to see this. The Type 5 Heavy, your tier 10 Japanese heavy tank, its reverse speed is going from 10 mile an hour to 11, or kph, whichever one they've done, I can never remember. The hull armour, because it's not very strong to start with, I laugh at my own jokes, I don't know why. Hull armour is going from 260 and 140 to 270 and 160. The turret armour is going from 260 to 280, and there's a new package. This is the 150mm gun. I don't know if this is the same one that they had on the PC, whereby you switch to premium rounds, you do a lot more damage. And I mean, like, you could drop 1400 or 1500 damage, but you could also drop 900 damage into a very heavily armoured part of a tank. Because reasons. I can't remember if that is the case, but I don't know, I'm not really going to complain. I'm going to be going down the line and seeing how it is. If it is certainly an issue, I'll make it aware. We don't really want tanks that are completely unbalanced. I don't know why the hull armour has been changed on the turret armour. They're not exactly paper armour again. The Type 4 Heavy is going from 20 to 25 miles an hour, and it's also getting the 150mm, which it'll have on the Type 5 Heavy. The OI and the Kaiju is getting a hull armour nerf? I think it's a rear. So on the 150 to 105, I mean, I really didn't like the Kaiju. I'm really disappointed I ended up getting it during that last Halloween. And it's... I do find myself in a lot of tier 7 games, tier 8 games, where my armour itself is the only thing that's helped me get through. There's been a lot of times I've been driving, for example, the Oni, where my rear armour, because it's just as strong as the front, has allowed me to survive at least a little bit longer because of other factors within the game. So I'm not too impressed with that, to be perfectly honest, but we'll see. The Type 91 Heavy and the Type 95, I believe these are like the tier 4s. It's not getting that much in terms of a difference. Again, negligible, because you'll probably get past. But then we'll move on to the other mediums that are coming up. The Chini, the Chiri, and the Cheeto. Not the Crisp. Some turret armor buffs, nerfs, update the collision model, and some changes to this shot dispersion during rotation. I can't really say I ever had an issue specifically with the Japanese line when it came to mediums. Their armor's crap, so it wasn't really an issue to actually hit one, and one of the things that helped them out was an auto-loader that fired shot after shot after shot and then reload and run away. So there must be a reason as to why they do that. Finally, we move on to the USA tanks. This is where we get some fun aspects, and it looks to be they finally figured out that the American artillery line is slightly broken. Moving on to the M7 Priest, 105mm howitzers, reload times going from 9.3 to 12.4. The M6 Tier 6 Heavies, hull armour has been increased from 44mm to 61 and 41 to 51 for the rear. The T32 turret 1 and 2, the 105mm gun reload times from 12.6 to 11.2, with the 90mm going from 7.6 to 7.4. That will be very nice. Pershing Tier 8 Tier 8 USA medium, the chassis 1 and chassis 2, the turret rotation and movement, the shot dispersion getting a slight buff as well. The 90mm guns on those, which I'm trying to see a difference between the two, and I can't, between turret 1 and turret 2, just how it's shaped. Negligible in terms of the shot dispersion during the turret rotation for both those turrets, and the final one itself, again, very negligible, but all going to 0.1. Disappointed to see the M46 pattern hasn't changed, but it is a fantastic tank, so it doesn't really need to, although I'd really like it to. The M48 pattern, the turret armor is going from 177.8mm to 254, which is a massive buff. Now I wonder why they've done that. It has been needed a buff for a very, very long time, the pattern. It's been a long time coming. It's not really something of a competitive medium, especially when you have the Russians out and the Germans. Just have a look next time you're in a game that's a tier 10 and look how many of the actual medium tanks are not an M48 pattern, and you'll see. I kind of use the same argument when it comes to artillery, in terms of look at how many people play the M53, 55 over any other artillery, and also look how many people play the American tank line. Then you can get an idea of how broken something is. The T92, however, is getting a 500 horsepower to 860 boost, so it'll move slightly quicker, although a lot of the time you're kind of moving forward, so unless you have the situational awareness to get out of the way or get into the right spot, it's negligible and not really needed. The T28, this is your tier 8 fixed turret tank destroyer. The top speed going forward is 18 to 22, and the reverse speed is going from 7 to 10, with the rotation speed getting a nice little buff from 18 to 20 for the first chassis, the second one from 20 to 24. And nice to see the T95 is going from 13 kilometers an hour forward to 20, and the reverse is 6 to 10. So that'll be nice for a lot of people. The M103 is getting a view range buff. 10 meters for the first turret from 370 to 380, and 10 meters again for the second turret from 390 to 400. The T57 Heavy is getting a nerf from shot dispersion for turret rotation from 0.2 to 0.25. The T28 Prototype, which is again another tier 8 tank destroyer that leads to the T11OE4, top speed forward from 18 to 28, which I have to admit is a fairly decent speed, so that'll be decent to get into like hidey holes or keep up with the other team. That'll be very difficult to get rid of if they're surrounded by a lot of people. And its reverse speed is going from 7 to 10. The E5, no changes on that one apparently, because reasons. I would point out it's still probably broken in regards, because it's a very good tank. They're very difficult to get around, and its armor's kind of good. So it says updated commander's hatch armor. We'll see what that means. The T21, which is a long time since I played this line. This, I believe, is the tier 7 light tank. It's having a few changes itself to the turret models. Nothing in regards to any details about what they're physically changing. The T22 Prototype, which I believe is the tier 1, negligible, not even going to bother reading that. The T11OE3, the shot dispersion during movement and rotations, going from 0.22 to 0.25, so slightly more. Kind of confused at that one, why they keep nerfing it, but there must be an issue with it apparently. Again, I don't see many of those about anymore. The M53-55 is thankfully getting some sort of a nerf. 155mm gun reloads going from 22 to 25.7 seconds. And the big 203mm howitzers reloads going from 32 to 38 seconds. Ideal, it's part of the way forward. Maybe some more changes in regards to artillery overall. Maybe the stunt mechanics that you have on PC, something to kind of balance things out. The M56 Scorpion's having a shot dispersion during turret rotation from 0.14 to 0.01, and the aim time is going from 2 seconds to 1.9. A few other changes to the tier 1s, 2s and 3s down below. Your T14, which was a very old premium tank that I got from the beta phase. You play the beta and then play the actual game, they gave you this one. Was it needed? It's got a 1mm of extra armor. I don't know exactly where, but apparently it's required. There are a few other changes to the bug fixes that they put in. I will leave those as they are and leave you to read them if you want to. Obviously, with the description down below, you'll see everything that I've already discussed over the top. If there's anything I've missed that you do like playing yourself, you'll have to have a look and see how it happens. And I do believe this is the update that's going to be coming out on the 10th. So get ready with your massive update downloads, get them set, go out, make a cup of tea, go play Rocket League or something else, and then come back and start playing with some new tank buffs. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I shall see you beautiful guys later.